So let us start with the today class. In today class, I will show you the way how can build a project like Netflix, like we having the Amazon Prime Video. Let's say any other OTT platform, which nowadays I'm sure you are using to watch any movie, to watch any show, whatever you are like over there. So the similar thing we are going to discuss in this today masterclass. So agenda for today class is first we will understand what are the technologies you can use to build such type of project. So how we can decide the technologies and what would be the project architecture. So here I'm going to talk about the clean architecture and the microservices architecture. So one of them can be used to build such type of application. So such architecture we are going to discuss over here. Then we talk about here the design principle and patterns, like what are the design patterns and the principle you should keep in the mind whenever you are designing such application. Then we talk about a security authentication. Then we will use a, let's say, bootstrap for design purpose. And what are the various best practices should keep in the mind? We will discuss those also. And I will give you an idea about the Microsoft Azure as well, because nowadays what is happening, what are the application you are building, we are going to deploy to the cloud. And guys, make sure the objective of this session is to share the information, to share the detail about how the project can be built and what are the technology you should keep in the mind. And I will show you the project code as well. Let's say how the project can be developed over there. What are the things you should know to build, to develop such application. If you are coming to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such valuable courses will get notified. So let's get started with the course. How we can decide the technologies over here. So when it is coming to building the application, so mainly we having the few things we should keep in the mind. The first thing is backend. So we need to write the code for the backend. So here the backend code nowadays people are writing using the .NET 5, using .NET 6 and ASP.NET Core. So we having the ASP.NET Core, these are the things can be used for building the backend. For front end, you can use MVC, you can use Angular, you can use React.js. So you might be thinking why I'm sharing the information about other technologies as well, because today's session is about React with .NET. I'm sharing the other technology information as well because it's not the case. Such application you can only build using the React.js. You can build the similar application using the Angular as well, using the ASP.NET Core MVC as well. So it's not making any difference what are the technology you are using. One of them you have to use over there. So that's why you having the three option here for front end element. Either use React.js, either use Angular, either use MVC. But in today's session, our focus would be on React.js over here. So we decided the backend, we decided the front end. Okay, so for backend, we will use .NET 6 with ASP.NET Core Web API. And for front end, for today's session, we will use React.js. But you having the other option as well. Then we having here patterns and practices. So you have to use one of the architecture style. You can use NTR architecture, you can use microservices architecture, and few of the design patterns also you have to use over there. MVC is a pattern over there, but here my context is regarding the ASP.NET Core MVC. I'm not taking here MVC pattern. Here I'm discussing about ASP.NET Core MVC. So don't confuse with the MVC. So MVC is a style which we are talking about with respect to ASP.NET Core. So here you should know some design patterns as well, like solid principle understanding you should have. You should have the understanding of the microservices. Then we decided the backend, we decided the front end, and we decided the architecture. So architecture can be the clean architecture, the architecture can be the microservice architecture. Then we having about here to deploy the application. So nowadays what is happening, we are going to deploy the application to the cloud. So Microsoft Azure various services we nowadays are using. So what are the various services you can use for building your application? I will share in the upcoming slides so that you having the understanding, because there are so many people who having the confusion why we should use Microsoft Azure and why we should use DevOps. So DevOps also needed whenever it's coming to create the build pipeline, when it is coming to create the release pipeline. So ultimately your application you build, Now it's a requirement to deploy the code onto the different environment. It can be the dev environment, it can be the testing environment, it can be the production environment. So how these things can be done? So these things can be done with the help of DevOps. You can use the AWS as well. I'm not denying you cannot use AWS, you can use GCP as well. So what are the cloud you are willing to use? Anyone can be used over there. But ultimately nowadays we have to use a cloud over there. So these are the things actually you should know whenever you are going to decide any application like we having the Netflix. Because today we are discussing about the Netflix. So Netflix like application we actually hosted on the cloud. The Netflix like application we are managing using the CI/CD pipeline. It's not the case. It's a only manual deployment over there. So they are not using the manual deployment style. Even they are using many different patterns over there. Okay. So when it is coming to building such application, so first we need to decide the project architecture. Let me first show you the example of the clean architecture. I can say the onion architecture over there. So this is the way how the clean architecture layers looks like. And the center we having the entities, then we having the repository where we write our data access logic, then we having the services where we write our business logic, we having the UI where we write our presentation logic over there. This is the layered architecture of the same thing. So if you're not willing to use the microservices architecture, so this also the architecture can be used. So it's up to you what architecture style you are following. I'm not saying from the day one you have to adopt the microservices. But when it is coming to building the enterprise grade application nowadays, like we having the Netflix, we having the Twitter, they are using microservice architecture. So this is the one style you can follow for building the similar application. So this architecture you should keep in the mind. Then we having the another architecture as well, that is microservice architecture. So when it is coming the microservice architecture, it will look like this way in the Netflix. So here, if you're looking at here, the Netflix having behind the scene so many backend microservices. So let's say I'm taking a few example over here where I'm using the catalog microservice. It's having its own database. We having the authentication microservice. It's having own database. Then we can have the similar another microservices as well. And behind the scene, these microservices are communicating to each other with the help of messages. And those messages are going to store somewhere. Let's say these messages are going to store in event bus. So as the event bus, you can use Kafka, you can use Azure Service Bus, you can use any others over there simply. Then whatever the front end we having, that front end we can divide into the multiple parts. So just think about we having a user website, that is a separate website we having an internal support website that is also we having separated. And we having here the accessibility of these things from the browser, from the PC, from the mobile application, from anywhere you can access. And these front end things are not directly accessing the backend microservices. These actually accessing through the API gateways. So we will not have only one API gateway. We will have the multiple API gateways. Through that, we are accessing these backend microservices. So when it is coming to the Netflix and the Twitter like website, they are actually using more than 500 plus microservices. So you might be thinking it's a smaller website where we having only a few pages to do the things, but it's not the case. Behind the scene, they're having 500 plus microservices. And because of that, they introduce the high availability, they introduce the many other things over there. Even the same thing we having in Twitter as well. In Twitter as well, they're having more than 500 plus microservices. So now what is happening, wherever you will go for nowadays for building the application with cloud, with .NET, a little with any other framework as well, it can be Java, it can be the Node.js, everywhere in enterprise grade application, people are using the microservices. The reason behind using the microservices is your architecture, your infrastructure is easy to scale. You don't have much downtime because the entire website should not be down at once. Only one of the section of the website will not work as per the expectation, but other things will go ahead without an issue. Even the same thing you have experienced in the Facebook, Twitter, and Netflix as well. So they keep pushing the new changes, but they are not actually showing any ticker on their website, let's say between this time to this time, you will not able to access our website. So these things are going to be have over there. The RabbitMQ can also be used as a event bus over there. We having the many example of message broker. Let's say we having the RabbitMQ, we having the Azure service bus, we having the SQS as well in AWS. If you're looking for AWS, we having the Kafka as well. So there are many examples which can be used over there. Okay, so when it is coming to building the project, so here I'm not using the microservice architecture. I'm using here the clean architecture for building the application like Netflix. So I will show you here the code which I wrote over here. So this is my Visual Studio. What I did here, I just divided the things into two sections over there. We having the backend and we having the front end. Okay. So when it is coming to the backend, so backend is here containing the APIs. It's a API based architecture we having over there. So this is my API. And in the API, when it is coming to this clean architecture, this is the way we design. So we having the entities, we having the repository, we having the services, and we having the API. So in place of UI, we having the API over there. So if you're looking at here, when it is coming to the Dell, so we having the entities over there, and we having the repositories. So here we have defined all the repository. So we having a movie repository, payment repository, subscription repository. This is the implementation for all the repository. So in the repository, we added all the data access logic. And here I'm using the entity framework core 6, where all the entities we have imported over there. So now these repository we actually accessing in these services. So what is happening here? We having the services where we have written our business logic with the help of these various repositories over there. So I'm having here authentication service where we have implemented the token-based security. So this is the way how we are generating the token. And this is the way we having the movie service. We are retaining the list of movie over there. We having a payment service where we are actually written the code to integrate the payment gateway. So as a payment gateway, we are using here Razorpay. You can use any other payment gateway as per your requirement over there. Anyone can be used. When it is coming to comparing the architecture, so both architecture are good. I would not say the microservices is not good, the clean is not good over there. Even when you are following the microservices architecture, there you can use clean architecture for managing a particular service dependency over there. So microservices at more high level, you can think about, and there it can be clubbed with the clean architecture as well. So when it is coming to the enterprise grade application where we having the users in billions, in millions, so their microservices definitely will help you nowadays because the traffic over the internet is keep increasing. So think about the future. They think about after 5 years, how much traffic your website can handle, how much scalable your website infrastructure is. So to keep such things in the mind, nowadays the enterprise grade application are adopting the microservices architecture so that they can scale the things without impacting the entire application. Because what happens with the traditional style, in the traditional style, if let's say you're going to update a particular thing, so your complete website will be impacted. But nowadays, not the case without impacting the complete UI, that the complete accessibility to the website. I'm just updating, I'm just only impacting a particular section of that one. So that's why the microservices comes in the picture. Or you can say microservices are there helping you. These are only things. So as a developer, you should know both of them because inside the microservices also, the people are using the clean architecture. Is it clear? This is the way the backend is going to be created over there using the .NET 6 and ASP.NET Core Web API. Then we having the front end. So when it is coming to the front end, so we are using here React. So this is my client application. And what I did here, this project actually I created along with the ASP.NET Core 6. The benefit of this style is if let's say you're going to add anything server side, so it can be integrated easily. So you can see here, this is my controller where I added a file controller. It's a complete ASP.NET Core Web API. which actually I'm accessing in this front end code. That is my React.js code over there. And when it is coming to the which version of React we are using, you can see I'm using here React 17.x. So this is the React version we are using over there simply. So this is the way we are using here React. And now let's see how this code is looking like. So when you will run the application, it will look like this way. So this is a website we built using the same code base. And let's say I have given the name eVideo Prime. So where we just listed down some movies over there. It's up to you how many movies are there. I just added some movies for doing the things over there. You can open a movie. So where you will get a movie detail like this way. When you will click on this watch movie button, a movie will be played over there. Here I have designed a pricing section as well. If you're willing to purchase a plan over there, and from here you can log in. So when it is coming to login, let's say I'm just going to log in here using admin. So I just created here a admin login this way. So admin will have the way to add the movies. So let's say these are the movies we added over there. So is somebody willing to create a new movie, from here you can add a new movie. And if let's say you're willing to edit the existing movie, we can edit the existing movie as well over there. Let's say at the admin side, the things we have designed over there. Okay, so this is the admin side we having over there. And you can do sign out over there. And similar way, if let's say you're willing to purchase anything, you can do subscribe over there. Let's say I'm going to subscribe to my plus plan. It is asking me to log in. So as a user, I can log in over there. This is the way I'm just going to log in over there. Now let me subscribe. So this is the way it is showing me the order detail. What are the things I'm going to purchase? And now there's option pay with Razorpay. It is coming here a payment gateway where you need to mention here your card detail. So let me give here save card. Okay, and we having here the payment gateway is Razorpay. So I can mention here, let's say Razorpay, and we having the test card. So these are the test card we can use over there to complete this payment over there. So let me mention any expiry date greater than today, CVV number, any number over there, and do the payment. Success. So this is the way how the things can be done over there. And if you will go to here, the user one, I can go to here user dashboard over there simply. This is a user dashboard where user can see the list of movies over there. So this is the way how the things we build similar to we having the things, let's say, if the similar UI you're willing to look at, we having the UI, let's say, Hotstar. We're looking at in the Hotstar, we having the similar UI where they shown the things over there. Okay, where let's say if you're opening any things, we are looking like this way. Okay, so this similar things we have just developed over there using the React.js. Let me explore here the code over there so that you having the more clarity over here. So you can see what I did here in React.js. Do you know what style you should use nowadays? Component based style. Let's say we having the hooks. So when it is coming to the latest trend, now people are preferring the hooks style because on the React.js official website, they have mentioned clearly in future they will not support the class based things, or you can say they will not promote the class based architecture. So what I did here, I used only hooks over there. I didn't use here the class based style for building the project. That is now recommended everywhere. So when it is coming to this one, this is my app.js where we just follow some pattern over there. So here we are using the React router library, and this is the way how we define the routes over there. And here we are not loading everything at once. Here we are implementing the lazy loading, because the benefit of the lazy loading is it will not load all the modules at once. So let's say you are only accessing the public pages. So only the public pages things it will load over there. It will not load the admin module. into the browser memory. It will not load the user module into the browser memory. So this helps us to make the first request faster, because sometimes it happens if you are loading everything in once. So what will happen? Your first request would be slow. So it, and if just assume you having so many modules in your application, so it's not a recommended way you should load everything at once. So you should always follow the lazy loading, or you can say you should always load the things in chunk. Same thing I'm doing here. I'm just using here the lazy loading for user module, the lazy loading for admin module. So when it is coming to admin modules, admin module having the containers. So containers are just like we having the web page. So when it is coming to the admin module, this is my movie.js, the page which I shown to you where we adding the movie. And here we are using the formic to design the HTML form. And when it is coming to apply the validation, we are using here yup library. So you can see here, this is the use effect I'm using here, because the same page I'm using for added purpose as well. And this is the way the using the yup, we are defining the validation over there, and we handling the submit over there. So what are the recommended practices? What are the recommended library? You should know whenever building the React project, already we have used over there. Then we having the option here for movies listing. So the movies listing, we also using here hooks again. Use effect, use state are the hooks over there. I'm not using any very class-based component. This complete project is based upon the hooks style over there. And here we having a separate admin layout. So whatever the routes we having specific to the admin, we are keeping in this admin layout. And what are the routes are specific to the user, we are keeping inside the user layout. This is the way. So the best way for designing the application is you should break down the application to multiple modules over there, so that those multiple modules actually easy to maintain or easy to manage. If you will keep everything in one place, it would be difficult to maintain and manage. So when it is coming the hooks, so hooks just a way to maintain the state at functional component level. Because in the React.js, what is happening before the hooks, you are not able to maintain the state at component at the functional component level, because the functional component are considered as stateless. So for that purpose, in the React.js, we use class-based component, because in the class-based component, we have been a way to maintain the state. But now, with the help of hooks, we can able to maintain the state at functional component level. So now you don't need to use the class-based component style for building the application. You have to just focus on functional style. Even this is easy to use and follow the things over there. You don't need to just refer the things as we build in case of object-oriented programming, because somehow the people think about the class-based style is similar to the we having the object-oriented programming. What we are doing using the React, so using the Java, let's say using the C#. But here you don't need to do that one simply. So this is about we having the hooks based style over there. So this is the way modules, admin, user, and public we have managed over there. So this is about the project architecture just explained. I hope you having the more clarity over here. Now let me explain the other things which are required to know. So project architecture we discuss, even I just shown the things as well. And these are database diagram you should know about here. Now let me look at what are the design principle and patterns you should know. So when it is coming to designing any things, so first thing you should know is solid principles, because wherever you will go for as a solution architect, as a tech lead, so first thing you should keep in the mind solid principles for designing the things over there. So we having the solid principle you should know. You should know some architecture label pattern like MVC, MVBM, NTR, and microservices. Because these are the architecture we are using for building the application everywhere. Then we having the design patterns. So all that gang of 4 design patterns you don't need to know. I just mentioned here the few important design pattern that every developer should know, like repository pattern, dependency injection, factory, singleton, builder, adapter, strategy, facade, bridge, and state. So these are the patterns that everyone should know. You don't need to know all the 23 design pattern. Mostly these are the design patterns that everyone should know for doing the things over there, simply. Then we talk about the best practices. So best practice is also important, because it's not the case you are managing only things in one environment. We having the multiple environment. So make sure what are the configuration you having, let's say database connection string, we having the various other setting. So define in an environment setting file. Don't keep at one place, distribute them based upon the environment. You should handle the errors globally, implement the error logging concept. You should use SSL certificate over there. You should secure your cookies as well. You should bundle your JavaScript and the CSS file. Even when you are using the React.js, on the React.js, we are using the React CLI, and React CLI is actually helping us to bundle our JS, to bundle our code with the help of Webpack. So React.js is completely based upon the Webpack. So Webpack is helping us to create the bundles for JavaScript and the CSS file. And wherever it is possible, you should use CDN, Content Delivery Network, because CDN help us to render the content fastly over there, simply. Then you should cache. So what are the static content you having? That static content you should always cache at the client side, so that if a user is visiting your website again and again, so same content is not downloaded every time then when the user is visiting a particular page. So these are the best practices that you should always implement in a particular project. So these best practices also we implement in the same project, so that when it is coming to optimize the application performance, you know all the things. When it is coming to the the performance optimization at the application level. Now let me show here, as a .NET developer, where actually Microsoft Azure will help you, or when it is coming to building the enterprise grade application like Netflix, why they are using the cloud. So when it is coming to Netflix, so Netflix also using the cloud for hosting their application. So if let's say we are using here Azure for hosting such application, so what are the important services that every developer should know I'm sharing over there? So these are the 10 Microsoft Azure important services every developer use to build any type of application. So first we having virtual machine, which we use for hosting our application over there. The second one we having here, the Azure storage, when it is coming to the managing the files like audio, video, PDF, doc file, we always store as Azure storage. Then we having Azure SQL database. So whatever the SQL server you having, that SQL server data, how we are managing there as a Azure SQL database. Then we having the web app. So web app is a style for hosting your application. Again, but there is a difference between VM and web app. So in the VM, we can take the RDP and we can decide what are the software we need to install over there. But web app is a completely cloud managed. We cannot access the virtual machine behind the scene web app is using. We only manage the web app through the Azure portal. Okay, so web app is a complete auto managed service from the Microsoft. We have to just focus on building the application and hosting the things over there. Then we having the function app. When it is coming to running the background task, let's say we having the option for sending the email, we need to take some regular backup, we need to do other things. So their function app can help us. So what are the things we having over there? So those things can be done using the function app. Then we having the Azure Cosmos DB for the NoSQL database, Azure Service Bus. Then we having the Azure Active Directory for implementing the single sign-on functionality, Azure Key Vault for storing the database connection string, for storing your secret, and we having the Azure Application Insight. When it is coming to look into your code label, like say what method is taking how much time to execute, and what page is having how many requests over there. So if you're looking at on that one, their Azure Application Insight is coming into the picture over there. Okay, I explain all these services uses, where which one to use. Azure Service Bus is mainly used when it is coming to implement a disconnected way to implement, when it is coming to implement the disconnected way of communication between two services in your project or between two components in your application. Even when it is coming in the microservice, it's a commonly used service, because microservices behind the scene communicate to each other with the help of a message broker. So as a message broker, we having the Azure service bus over there. Now the next important thing, we having the DevOps, because so many people having a question where actually DevOps helping us. So DevOps actually helping us in various phases. DevOps is helping us in planning phase as well, because we having the Kanban board over there where we do the sprint planning. What are the various sprint are going to be decided in a project, we can do with the help of various tool over there. So in when it is coming the Azure, we having the Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, we having the board service for planning purpose. Then we do the development. So obviously development you will do using the .NET, using the React.js. So there you are doing the development. Then we having the testing. So what are the actually tasks you are building? Those tasks assignment is going to be done through the Azure board over there, through the Kanban board over there. We write the test cases for testing the things over there. We having the integration. So what are the code we have written? Obviously, we need to integrate it, we need to test it. Then we having the release and deployment. So here release and deployment is the most important part of an application. Even when it is coming to provide the frequent releases of your software. Even you have seen in the in case of the Twitter, Facebook, on the weekly basis, they keep releasing the update of their application. How it can be done? How it is possible? So this can be possible with the help of CI/CD pipeline, because when it is coming to automate the build and release pipeline, their DevOps actually playing a very important role over there. Simply, even the monitoring also. So what are the code you have deployed over there, how it is behaving? I need to monitor it, so that based upon that, the monitoring, we can take the next step to do the things over there simply. So these are things are important when it is coming to the DevOps over there simply. So main goal of the DevOps is to deliver the continuous, or you can say to deliver the continuous quality of your product, or you can say to deliver a quality product continuously to your customer. This is the way how the things are coming. As I said, pipeline is helping you to deploy the things onto the different environment. Let's say you are working on a project ABCD. Let's say you are working on this eVideo Prime. Now this eVideo Prime, I'm going to deploy to the dev environment. And the similar code I'm going to deploy to the testing environment. So one option is here, do the manual deployment. But manual deployment leads into the errors. Usually people do many errors over there. So how we can do it without any errors? So there CI/CD comes into the picture. Continuous integration, continuous release. So you have to just design a pipeline one time. After they keep committing the things and doing the things over there. DevOps actually, when it is comparing with Agile, so DevOps is just next to the Agile, because before that DevOps we use Agile. So there are so many things that DevOps also overlapping the Agile things. So Agile functionality is also containing over there, but Agile is only about project planning. Agile is not about monitoring. Agile is not about your release management, not about the build management. So DevOps is more than the Agile when it is coming the comparison. So this is the way how the DevOps comes into the picture. So we having the developers who actually committing the code to the source control like Git. It can be the TFS. Then we having the continuous integration that continuously actually checking for the commit. And as soon as the commit would be checking, it actually build the code. If there is any error in the building the code, it will share the report. If let's say there is no error in building the code, it goes to the next level, that is release management. So the release management level, we decide whether this code will go to the dev environment, QA environment, staging environment. If there are some feedback from these environment testing, it comes to the developer. The developers again build the things, and finally we do the deployment to the production one. And as a best practices to directly deploy the code to the production one, we need to have a review. We need to have a approval of that one. So as a solution architect, as a the tech lead, you might be involved at the approval side and just go ahead over there. So this is the way how the Azure DevOps actually going to involved in your complete project planning from start to end. So this is also the important part, especially when it is coming to the automating the deployment of your microservices based architecture and your currently architecture what you might build with cloud over there. And when it is coming to Azure DevOps, so these are the services Azure DevOps is offering for doing all the things. So we having the Azure Bolt, this is for project planning. We having the Azure Repo, this is about code management. We having the Azure Pipeline, that is about CI/CD pipeline. We having the Azure Test Plan for figure out your unit test cases, how they are, and to share the detailed report about the test cases over there. Then we having the Azure Artifact. So in Azure Artifact, we can create, host, and share the packages over there. So these are the various services the Azure DevOps is offering to us for managing the things simply over there.